the shadowing session today with Dr. Sogol. My name is Michael and I'll be today's host. To introduce, Dr. Sogol is a pediatrician and chief operating officer of ABC Pediatric Clinic in Houston, Texas. She's also a physician with Texas Children's Hospital and Memorial Hermann. Dr. Sogol graduated from Texas A&M University with a BA in biology, finished medical school at Baylor College of Medicine, and completed residency in general pediatrics at Baylor College of Medicine. Shortly after residency, she and her sister established ABC Pediatric Clinic. And in addition to her clinical and entrepreneurship roles, Dr. Sogol is a certified mindfulness physician coach. Before we begin, I have a few reminders for everyone. We encourage you to turn on your cameras if you're able to. This session will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel. And at the very end, there's going to be a Q&A for anyone to have any questions. Dr. Sogol can answer them. Please type them in the chat at any time, and we'll cover them at that time during the Q&A, or you can unmute during the Q&A. Either way works. But with that said, Dr. Sogol, feel free to take it away.
Awesome, guys. I am so excited. I love pre-med students and residents and med students. So I am going to spend the first probably 30 minutes of this lecture. I'm going to do it a little bit unconventionally. I'm not going to talk about like what your MCAT score needs to be, what your GPA needs to be, like all those stuff. I think y'all probably have like researched to death. And I'm not going to talk about specifically like how I got into pediatrics. I'll do that probably 10, 15 minutes at the end. But what I really wanted to share with you is kind of these learned from being a physician and a human being and also an entrepreneur. Okay, so that's where I'm going to start. And I hope y'all enjoy this, and it's super interactive. So I'm going to, can they, Michael, if I ask a question, can they type or no?
Definitely, they can type in the chat and I can let you know their response.
Okay, so I might make it a little bit interactive, but we'll see. Okay, so 5 life lessons learned how to conquer being a physician and entrepreneur. I'm a pediatrician. I also have my own practice. My practice is a little bit different because we are in an underserved area. So we're in an underserved suburbs area of Houston, Texas, and it's a Hispanic area. And it is really it's very rare that you can establish a clinic in a predominantly Medicaid area, right? And so we've done that. My sister is a pediatrician. We started about 13 years ago, and we grew our practice from a 2-provider practice to we're now 7 to 8 providers. Okay, so I have had, from the beginning of my journey till now, I have had so many people tell me that I couldn't get into med school. I couldn't get the residency that I wanted to get. I couldn't open the clinic where I wanted to open. And I have basically proven them wrong. And so I want to share with you what I have done to try to move myself forward in these challenges and these obstacles that I've had. So number 1, unfollow the haters. And I'm gonna try to like talk so like really informal. Unfollow the haters. Okay, and so there are some people out there that are like complete haters that will come to you and be like, no, you can't do that, like straight up, right? And there's some people out there that will inadvertently, okay, give you the message that you can't do something. Please don't listen to them, okay? The only thing that you need to remember is what your purpose is and what your why is. And you are the only person that's in your body, in your head, and you're the only person that knows what is a good choice for you. So if you choose to go into medicine, or if you choose to open up a clinic in an underserved area because that is the population that really is drawn to you, do not allow other people to deter you from whatever that purpose is in life, because people will. Okay, and so that is number 1, right? And that takes a lot of maturity, right? Because I feel like there are many forces out there that are trying to deter us from where we want to go, then try to support us. So you have to consciously, intentionally go out there and find your tribe and find those people that are like, yeah, Michael, you can totally do that. No one's ever done that before, but why not? You could be the first one to do that, right? So believe believe in yourself and find those people out there. And this is because of, COVID and everything that's being on social media. Like when we graduated, we didn't have any of this, right? It was like I had to go out to a clinic, or I had to meet people in person, or we had clubs at school, or medical societies undergrad. So our circle was very limited, but you've got the entire literally world, right? You've got the internet. So when you are spending time on social media, allow that social media to fill your cup, right? Like this is like what Michael and Suas are doing, is amazing networking, right? They have this purpose that they want to help pre-med students, and they put this together. And so find things like this. If you're following, so whoever is not muted, please not mute.
I'm looking at it right now.
In my phone.
Yes, Banera. Yes, Banera. Give me one second.
Can you
Can you
mute
hit that
yourself?
one, please?
We can't have
Perfect.
HGTV Urban Oasis without a great yard. And this one.
I don't know how to
Yeah.
mute.
Okay, they're not muted, but I think they turned off their TV. Okay, sorry, that was totally distracting. I have ADHD, so I'm like all over the place to start out with. So social media, I was talking about social media. So if you are going through your social media rolls, right, or scrolling down the post, and you keep coming to post after post that gives you the message of hopelessness and like, oh, this person already got into med school, or this person's doing this, and you are comparing yourself to other people, unfollow those posts. If they don't serve you, if you're following people, or if your circle of friends around you are people that are not serving you well, I give you permission to unfollow them. It's totally fine. People might get upset, they might get offended, but always put yourself number one on your priority list. That's one thing that I learned, is always you've got to be number one, and then everybody else can be number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's not to be like, I'm not saying be a narcissist and be rude and be self-centered, not at all, but always think like, how does me having this relationship with this person or following this thing on social media serve me? Is this thing on social media, is it uplifting? Is it empowering? Am I reading it every day and feeling like motivated? Like, yes, I can do this. I can push harder. Or is it like, is it causing fears of like self-doubt and fear and worry and running behind and overwhelm? Okay. So unfollow people, things, events that do not serve you well in your life. Okay. Number 2, which kind of I talked about a little bit in number 1, is comparisonitis and judgmentitis. Okay, so we're human beings, we tend to compare ourselves and we tend to judge ourselves. And this, in the medical community, the pre-med community, you are all overachievers. Okay, this is why you're sitting here. This is why you want to go into medicine. You are type A, some of you are perfectionists, but all of you are overachievers and you're super smart. Okay, so sometimes when we live in that space, we tend to compare ourselves to other people, right? And that comparison is never, it's always like, why am I not enough, right? That's the self-talk that you get. Why can't I do it better than this one? Why didn't I get a better grade than, this person next to me? Why can't I get biochemistry, the Krebs cycle, as fast as, John can get it, right? Why is life so unfair? Why did this person get into medical school and I haven't even taken my MCAT? Why is his MCAT score bigger, higher than my MCAT score? That does not serve you guys. Thinking, and your brain, the way that it is programmed, the primitive brain wants you to compare yourself. So you have to be really conscious when those thoughts come up to be like, does it really serve me for me to sit here and be like, oh, Lucy got an MCAT score of 32 and I only got an MCAT score of 28. So, I might as well give up, right? Or does it serve you better if you surround yourself with people that empower you and lift you up when you get those thoughts of like, Lucy got an MCAT score of 32, I might as well not even like give up, replace those thoughts with stuff like, hey, I'm doing my best. I'm working as hard as I can, okay? And that is totally good enough. And if Lucy wants to get a 32, great. There's other things that I have that Lucy doesn't have. It's not all about the grades, y'all, and it's not all about your not SAT scores, MCAT scores. I will tell you, I don't know how schools are much more competitive, but I got a 27 on my MCAT, which is like borderline. I don't know what it is right now. And I got, y'all know what I got on my SATs? You'll never guess. So I immigrated here in the 10th grade and my English was my second language and I was horrible at it and I hated reading and I hated I hated reading. So in SAT, you had to read well, right? To do and I was adequate in math, but I wasn't that great. I got a 940 on my SATs. Okay, but I did not let my SATs define me. I did not let my MCAT score define me, right? Because my thoughts that kept going in my head was like, you want to be a doctor? You'll be a doctor. You can do it. You might have to work harder than somebody else, but that's okay because working harder than somebody else will give you that set of skills, right? Life isn't supposed to be easy. Things aren't just supposed to come easily to you. Some people studying comes easy to them. Some people talking comes easy to them. Some people doing comes easy to them, right? And at different stages of your life, then you can leverage those skills, but not everything across the board is supposed to come easy. And when it does come hard, take it as an opportunity that I am learning, right? This is hard, but what am I learning? Not so focused on this is so hard, why is this one doing it better, why is that one doing it better, right? So the self-talk that you talk to yourself, the way that you talk to yourself totally makes a difference, and it propels you to move forward or it keeps you stuck, right? Or it makes you beat up on yourself, which is the worst thing that you can do, because if you continue to beat up on yourself throughout the years, you will hit burnout. You will hit a wall at some point. It might not be now or in med school or in residency, but at some point, if you're hustling your way to the top and if you're hating your way to the top, it is going to catch up on you. Just take that from a person that's gone through it, okay? So words like, I'm a badass, like I'm awesome, right? I'm here and I'm freaking awesome. I'm a hard worker, right? We used to have, first of all, if people are telling you that they're getting good grades and they're not studying, that's not true. Just don't believe them. Don't believe them, okay? We used to have people that would probably study less than me. I was in the library for 12 hours a day in med school just because I just had to study that hard to get through med school. But I'm a hard worker. A hard worker is an asset that you can have because residency, you have to work hard, right? Yeah, you have to have the brains, and all of y'all have the brains, right? Across the board, all of y'all have to have the brains, but it's that work ethic that gets you through med school and residency and fellowship and even like attending wise, right? Okay, I'm going to be a doctor. There's no question about it. Like if that's what I want to do, I'm going to do it. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know, what route. I don't know how many times I have to take the MCAT, and I don't know if I have to take a gap year or I have to be a scribe or be a research assistant, but I'm going to be a doctor. Okay. Number 3, I believe in myself. Believe in yourself. That belief is so important because there's so many times that other people are not going to believe in you. And if you're relying on other people to believing in you, it doesn't work like that. Right? The belief has to start with you. Okay. And then when you believe in yourself, then you trust yourself. I believe I'm going to be a doctor, and I trust myself to do the hard work. And if I believe and I trust, then I will get to the med school that I want. Or even if it's not the med school that I want, it's whatever med school that I want. It's what is meant for me. Okay. So switching those thoughts are like, you're not enough and you suck. And why do you have a B average? And why do you have a lower MCAT score? And why do you have a lower GPA? Anything like that, replacing it with those thoughts of like, oh, sorry, I just touched my thing and it went away. Replacing it with those thoughts of I'm awesome, I am great, I can do hard. Hard is my middle name. I trust myself. I will get there, right? So if you think about the second set that I talked about, like how does that make you feel when you're like, I can do hard, I trust myself, I will get there, right? What kind of feeling does that give you versus like, oh, I got another B. Oh, John got the A. I can never do this. Biochem is so hard. Why do I keep working and not getting the results I want, right? Totally different feeling, right? One is an empowering, motivating, happy, genuine. The other one is like, you're like, you know, pushing yourself down into the gutter, right? Okay, so number 3, I want to introduce you to your best friend. And your best friend's name is self-doubt. You have to become best friends with your self-doubt, okay? It is the biggest gift that you can give yourself when you recognize that self-doubt within yourself, and then you just hold its hand and you say, I know it's scary. I know you don't believe we can do it. I know it's hard, but we can do it together, right? It's your brain will work so much differently if you anticipate the self-doubt ahead of time, and if you don't try to fight it, and if you don't try to beat up on it, but you actually make friends with it, right? Just like they do make friends with your best enemy, right? Keep your friends close, but keep your enemy closer. I don't know what the quote says, but it's something like keep your enemies closer, keep your self-doubt closer. Okay. Self-doubt usually I will say I will give you some examples for me. As in high school, I go a little bit back in high school. So I did HOSA. I don't know if any of y'all did that. Health Occupation Students of America. When you're junior and senior year, you go to the hospital and like your little scrubs and you feel so cool. You feel like you're like a mini doctor. And I was in the emergency room, and there was a male, older Caucasian emergency room physician that was just talking to us, and he was like, oh, so what do y'all want to do? And I was like, oh, I want to be a doctor, like really super excited, right? Because you're like 16, 17, excited about the world and the opportunities. And he was like, oh, you have to have really good grades. And I was like, okay, yeah, like my grades are good, right? I didn't have all A's, but I was like, oh, okay, I have good grades. And he's like, what's your SAT score? And maybe I was a junior or senior, so I'd already taken it. And I was like, well, it's not the best, right? I didn't share it. Well, it's not the best. And he's like, well, if you don't have more than 1,200, then you'll never be a doctor. I don't know, he said something like that. And I was like, okay. But the way that I had been brought up and the way that I had just trained my brain was like, when I got messages like this, the thing that I told myself in my head was like, I'll show you, okay? And that's what I want you to think about. When someone comes and says, you know, you can't do this, or your MCAT score is too low, or your GPA is too low, or why weren't you president of 20 clubs, or why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that? You'll never get in, right? They make a judgment on you, or they tell you something that's a fact that they think it's the truth, or that's an opinion that they think is a fact. Then what I want you to tell yourself is, I'll show them, right? Not like, oh, maybe they're right. Oh yeah, let me go Google all the average MCAT scores for the med schools and see, yeah, my totally falls under it, right? Don't let yourself doubt don't let yourself doubt get in the way of you being and showing your awesomeness. Like every single one of y'all have an ability, you have a capability, you are unique in the skills that you have. And that is what is so beautiful in medicine, because there are so many different areas that you can go to, and each area has its own personality that it attracts. So your uniqueness is something to be celebrated. And if somebody can't recognize that uniqueness within you, then don't give them the time of the day and don't get wrapped up in what they say. You simply say, thank you. And you can either say, I'll show you to their face if you can, or you just say it in your head and just like excuse yourself. Okay. Okay. Number 4, network. I cannot tell you how important networking is. Okay. There has been so many times in my life where I have just been places, and I'm a super social person. So I talk a lot randomly to people. And so I've like maybe met this person for like 5 or 10 minutes. And then like 2 years later, something happened where I met that person, but it was such a great opportunity for me. And that opportunity arose from me making the attempt and the time to actually get to know this person like 2 years ago. Okay. That's one kind of networking, is like, tell everyone you want to be pre-med, ask everyone, like ask questions. If people get annoyed with you, it's okay. Ask other people questions, right? And then surround yourself, when you network, surround yourself with people that you value, right? Whether that be professors or maybe friends that are already med students, or even residents or attendings, or, you know, if you have societies, medical societies, seek out those people, but make sure they're the right fit for you, because some people that get to the top tend to not help the people down at the bottom. Those are the ones you want to unfollow, right? But some people that get to the top actually help pull others up there with them, because they value what you can bring. They don't see you as competition. They actually see you as one of them, as one of, you know, like passing the baton, like I've done it here, let me pass it on to you so you can look at what whatever your legacy is. You could do this. I'm sure there are a lot of Instagram pages now of like med students that are writing their stories or doing their stories through Instagram. I'm sure I'm not in that part of the world, but I know there's a lot for physicians. I assume y'all have a lot more than we do because you're the younger generation. So seek and see who those people are. So if it's like, if you're interested in like going to a particular school and that med student is at that particular school, like follow them and even reach out, like DM them and be like, hey, you know, you're at this school, like, what do you think? Like, whatever, have a conversation, be human, right? Be human, because you will learn so much in those interactions. Okay, and then number 4. Okay, number 5. Okay, I'm gonna say this, and you're gonna be like rolling your eyes, like, what else? I don't have time for this. Like, I've got to study for the MCAT, and I've got biochem and anatomy or whatever, chem 2, organic 2. Okay, you have got to love yourself first. This is so important. And this, I am talking from personal experience. The reason I became a mindfulness coach, I'll give you kind of the little 2-minute blurb. I had my vision board, just like y'all do, right? I'm gonna be a doctor, go to med school, you know, do whatever residency I like. I'm gonna get married and have some kids. And then on top of that, I'm gonna have my own clinic. And then I'm gonna have like a car, pay off my debt, and live happily ever after, right? So that was my vision board. And then at the age of 40, I completed my vision board and I was like, I feel horrible. And I couldn't figure out why I felt horrible, because everything on the outside looked great, right? Husband was great, kids were great, job was great, you know, my practice was great, everything was great. And what I found out is the feeling that I have, I call it post-call fatigue, right? When you're doing a 24-hour shift in the hospital and you come home and you're like completely drained. I was like that for 4 years and I couldn't figure out. And I did like all the blood work. Do I have leukemia? Do I have some rare disease? Do I have lupus? Blah, 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 blah. Nothing. And so what I found out is that I had hustled my way to the top, and I had neglected not only my body, right, and also my mind. And I will explain what that is. So your mind is all your thoughts, right? They come from your brain, they come from your mind. And your body is all your feelings. So you think with your mind and you feel with your body, right? And my thoughts were a little bit different. My thoughts, if I tell them, you would be like, oh, those are really good thoughts, right? And they probably got me to where I am now, but they just did not serve me as I am moving forward. My thoughts were very much judging and comparing. So it was like, oh, so now that you're a pediatrician, that's not enough. We have to go open up a clinic. And now that you've opened up a clinic, you have to grow the clinic. And now that you've grown the clinic, you need a second location. And it was like, it was never ending. It was like I set these goals for myself and I reached them. But like I never celebrated myself. It was always like, okay, well, yeah, I guess that's okay. But what else? What else? And I kept comparing myself to these people and that people, and look what they're doing. And why aren't you doing that? Right. So that's where the comparisonitis and the judgmentitis comes from. So understanding what your self-talk is so important, because the way that you talk to yourself is your thoughts in your head, right? That's the self-talk that you have for yourself, create your feelings, right? So if you're constantly like comparing yourself and saying, why didn't I do this right? Why didn't I do that wrong? You can push through, because we're pretty like strong-willed people. So you can push through and power through with that will. But at some point, you're going to be like, you're not being very kind. Like, why do you keep talking to yourself like that, right? So it's so important to know what you're thinking. And those thoughts can be so tricky sometimes. The obvious ones are obvious, but the deeper rooted ones are not so obvious. So I always say the number one thing I tell just like all my clients and all the students is like every night, write about why you're so amazing. 3 things. Well, start with one if you have problems, which most of y'all will probably do have problems saying it. Just start with one thing and say, why am I amazing? What did I do today that was amazing? And it should be something within you and not like something outside of you, right? Because the mind pattern is it likes to be negative and repetitive. So your natural self-talk for all humans, that's across the board, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. We like to find evidence for all the negative things, and then we like to keep repeating that in our head, right? So when you write 3 things that you are amazing at every night, it kind of shifts that perspective from the negativity land into the like, oh, yo, kind of amazing. Yeah, like I did that. Wow, that's crazy. And when you do that, do it in small steps. Like we always go big or go home, right? You don't go big, go small, right? Like the fact, like I drank 2 cups of water today, and usually I don't drink that much water. Like that would be a win for me, right? Like for the world, it's not really significant, but for me on a personal level, yeah, it's significant. So start very small. It's not like these are like not gold medals in the Olympics that you're going to get. These are tiny things that if you keep repeating and recognizing over time, those tiny steps make a huge move forward to y'all, right? So that's your talk. So I journal religiously. I don't know if y'all's generation journals, I'm not really sure, but you know, write some or type something. I don't know if y'all use paper and pen anymore, like type it on your iPad or something like that, but get those thoughts out, whatever those thoughts that are circling in your head that have got you down and they're causing feelings of like doubt and hopelessness and not motivating and you empowering you, write those down, and then write down like, hey, what are the 3 things I did awesome today? What are the 3 things that I love about myself, right? Like I'm kind. I held the door open for Mr. Smith, right? Like small stuff. This does not have to be big, okay? So that's celebrating yourself and thinking about what your thoughts are. Okay, your body. Okay, your body is where you feel. So 2 parts to the body. There's your physical body, right? So like rest. It's totally okay to rest. Write yourself a prescription to rest. Give your mind a break. Give your body a break, right? So you're not, and this is something that I did not do literally for 40 years. I went 120 miles per hour for 40 years, and then I hit a wall, and then my body was like, we're not doing that anymore. We're like totally out of gas. You need to do something else. So rest. rest. Fit in resting time into your schedule. It makes a difference. When you rest, your body thanks you. And then when you show up to study or go to class or do that lab or take that test, it is fresh, right? So that's sleep. Like for y'all, rest is sleep. If you can take naps, I don't know if any of y'all do, but that would be amazing. But at least like sleep should be a priority for you, okay? Eating, okay? We tend to eat a lot of junk when we are studying. Don't do that. That'll weigh you down, right? Coffee is not good. Water's good, right? These are like the fundamental, like that would the nutritionists tell you, right? If you are relying on coffee, like to keep you up and get you to study, like that's a horrible habit to have, because you're going to rely on that in med school and you're going to rely on that in residency, and then you're going to be addicted, right? And there's a lot of side effects from coffee, and so create these habits that serve you well from the beginning. Okay. Eating, drinking, what else did I talk about? Then there is the feeling part of you, right? Your body feels. Okay, so me, type A, totally competitive, judgmental, criticize myself, judge everyone. I did not feel. Like feeling was not in my vocabulary, because if I felt, that there were two thoughts. If I felt, then that means I'm weak, right? And if I felt, that means I would have to like pause and like not like figure out why I felt like that, and then I would fall behind, right? But when you don't feel, when you don't recognize what your feelings are, those feelings keep building up and up and up and up. And then when you get to be 40, then you have chronic fatigue, because you haven't processed any of your emotions for 40 years. Right? They don't go anywhere. Emotions do not go anywhere. Emotions are energy in motion. It's energy. Energy is nor created nor destroyed, right? It like transforms. Same thing. So if you are sad and you're like, okay, fine, just move through. I got this test to study for. That sadness is going to go sit somewhere in your body, and it's going to accumulate, and it's going to accumulate over time. And then the way that you deal with it is you're going to become really reactive. It's going to come out as anger or depression or some sort of reactivity. Okay. So if you have to cry, freaking cry. It's okay. I tell my kids cry once a month. It's like therapeutic. It's like free therapy. Okay. If you have to yell, okay, go put your face in a pillow and like scream, like yell, whatever emotions you have, allow yourself to have that emotion. Even when, for me, it was crazy, because even when it was the happiness emotions, right? Like, oh my God, yay, I got a A on my biochem test. I'd be like, okay, yeah, but what's next? It's like, dude, just sit with it, celebrate yourself. This is a good moment. Like those things matter over time, okay? And then I cannot stress the power of nature. Go outside, especially for y'all, okay? You're sitting in front of your computer, sitting on your iPhone, social media, a lot of networking is on your iPhone. Like go outside with your computer. That's actually better than just like sitting inside under fluorescent lighting, right? Walk, bike, I don't know, go stare at the sun, stare at the trees, smell the flowers. That stuff matters, guys. That stuff gives you energy. You come from the earth and you return to the earth, right? You are part of the earth. You are connected. And if you're disconnecting yourself with that and you're spending so much time on electronics, you will see the consequences as the years go by. So try to connect with nature, however way you like to connect with nature. Go play soccer in nature, right? As long as you're like breathing the air. And then the other part of the body is your breath is very important. The first thing they teach in CPR is ABC, airway, breathing, cardiac. We as humans do not breathe. We either hyperventilate or we hold our breath. Okay. And that is not good in the long run. So taking some really nice deep breaths And breathing for me, and y'all can go YouTube this or Google it, you want to use belly breathing, just YouTube belly breathing. We all breathe wrong. Infants are born into the world breathing with their bellies. So belly breathing is when you inhale, your belly goes out. When you exhale, your belly goes in. That belly breathing puts you from a sympathetic chronic stress cortisol system, which is what you're all sitting in right now, into the parasympathetic, the calm and rest and digestive state. So you can breathe, you can do belly breathing like right now, listening to this conference. You could do it in the shower. You could do it when you're probably peeing or going to the bathroom if you're like, I don't have enough time to do anything, right? Belly breathing is so important because it calms your nervous system. And y'all know when you're in chronic stress and you're pumping cortisol through your body, long-term, that causes a lot of diseases, right? So belly breathing is something that's free, that will allow you to come back into that really restful state. And if you do it long-term, it is a beautiful tool that you can use in residency when you have a patient that, is yelling at you because you didn't do the right thing. When you have an attending that, says words that are very unkind to you, you can use that belly breathing to bring yourself down and ground yourself again. And then the third thing is, so that's your mind, that's your body, and then your soul, okay? Your soul is your purpose. Your soul is what when you follow your intuition, when you follow your why, when you follow your purpose, that is your soul. Don't lose that, because it is one of the easiest things to be lost in the noise of the world, right? So always go back to that why. And part of your soul is your soul loves to play. So for those people, I wasn't allowed to play in high school, right? Because like playing was not an AP class, right? Like you couldn't get an AP credit because you played. I think parents are a little bit more lenient now, but I don't know, my generation, you couldn't play. So I would have loved to do theater, but the theater was an AP class, so you can't, you have to take biochem instead or whatever, right? So if you had a hobby in high school, soccer, if you were in sports, if you were choir, drawing, don't lose that creativity side of you, because right now, I think one of the reasons that medicine is where it is right now, and it's kind of, we have lost all autonomy, it's because we lost the power to create and play. And creativity also means innovation, right? It's not just like, playing the violin or whatever. Creativity means, what can I do? How can I be innovative in my field of medicine, right? Whether that be robotics or whether that be an entrepreneurship or it would be an advocacy, whatever. So don't lose that connection with your play. It's so important. Okay. Okay. And then, so those were my top 5. The last thing I want to say is failures are not a scary thing. You should fail. Failure is, okay, like failing forward. Have y'all heard that? Right? So when you do fail, give yourself a pat on the back. And the first question you're going to ask is like, what did I learn? Not like, oh my God, I failed again. I'm never going to get there. When is this going to happen? I told you I should quit, getting that self-doubt to come in again. Be like, oh, cool, I failed. That's amazing. What did I learn? Do you know that failing is like, it propels me forward? I want to fail, right? It's so important. We are not, especially the pre-med students, you are not used to failing because you've always been at the top of your high school class, definitely. Y'all were probably like all valedictorians. And then even in college, you're top tier. When you go to med school, I remember I went to med school, I was like, why is everybody smart? Like, what is going on? So when you learn to fail early on, then it doesn't bother you as much, right? Then you don't expect to get all A's. Like whenever you're in med school, you don't beat yourself up all the time. Those self-doubts aren't as loud as they used to be. So practice failing. It's not a bad thing. And that is all I have as far as my advice. If y'all have any specific questions for like pediatrics, business, or anything that I talked about that didn't make sense, totally. Oh, I see some chats here. I don't know. Okay. What do you like most about Okay, so do you want to read it, Michael, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, either way that works for you. Usually we read it off to the speaker and then they give off their answer. Either way though, whatever would.
That sounds awesome. Let's do that.
Yeah, so like you read, the first question is a little off topic from what we mentioned today, but about your specialty. What do you like most about pediatrics? Because a lot of pre-med students, medical students, I'm sure they're all wondering, what specialty am I going to pursue later on? And it's a pretty common question. It would be great to know from a pediatric person themselves.
Yeah. So I will say pick your specialty based on the experience and the connections that you have with the people and the field, right? You have to love kids to go into pediatrics, right? I'm like really goofy and I like to play and I'm not like very serious in my ways and I'm really loud. And so I felt like I connected with the kids better because I was loud, because then when I was loud to the older, like the adults, they kind of got offended. They were like, why are you yelling at me? Right? So you have to love kids. And a lot of people, I will say, with pediatrics are like, well, I love kids, but I can't do the parent thing. I think the parent thing is so much easier than the adult things. And what I will say is at least the parents care more about the kids and most parents, the well-being of the kids rather than themselves, right? So if you're an adult patient, it's very hard to change habits in adults, and a lot of internal medicine was like chronic diseases and high blood pressure and diabetes, chronic management. And pediatrics, it's like a story. It's like you watch the kids grow from this to like that. Like, I think that's just amazing. And if you do connect with the kids and you love the kids and you do, like my clinic, I've been there for 13 years. Unfortunately, there's so much turnover in medicine now. Physicians don't stay where they are for a long time. But the beauty of primary care, I will tell you, if you go into primary care, is to do it long-term and grow with these families. Because now I feel totally old, but I have patients that are now having babies that I'm seeing their babies, right? And I think that's just beautiful to be a part of, another human being's experience in life like that, and be able to guide them and be able to see the kid grow. And yeah, so that's why I love pediatrics. I would have done surgery, but my surgical rotation, they were so mean. That's why I say what specialty you pick totally depends on your experience. Like, I went to Baylor and surgery was brutal. And like, they were so mean. And I was like, I can't. Like, that was my experience of surgery. So I was like, I can't do surgery.
Yeah, I hear often that it often matches with the personality. So like you said earlier, I think you mentioned earlier that there's a lot of similar personalities that you're going to see in each specialty. And I think that goes the same for pediatrics. So to tag along with that earlier question, another person asked, what is your daily life like?
Okay, so right now it's amazing. I only work so I guess we should. So right now for me, I only work 2 days a week, right? That is the beauty of being an entrepreneur, guys. It takes a lot of work, but when you put in the lot of work, you can actually sit back and watch, the fruits of your labor, right? So I only work 2 days a week. So what I do, we created our clinic. So I had 3 kids under the age of 6 when I opened my clinic, and my sister had 1 child, and then she got pregnant with. So we both had 5 kids, right? So we were like, we want to create a clinic where we can be moms and physicians. So that's what we did. So I do not do hospital work. I do not do newborn nursery, nothing like that. I go into the office at 8:30. I see patients, I think till 11:30. I'm done by lunch. I take an hour for lunch, and then I see patients from 1 to 4:30, and I'm home at 5. But I am super efficient. I work super fast. And so like, work on your efficiency and organizational, right? It's not all about, that's what I'm saying. It's not all about your grades. Like, and that's how I can see about. So average pediatrics will see like 22 to 24. but we're a Medicaid clinic, right? So we actually get paid 50% less per visit than private insurers. So we have to work harder. So I see an average of 28 to 30. I have a scribe. So another point, delegate and support and find help. And so my notes are done by 5 o'clock and I'm out of there. And I've been doing that for, that's been my schedule. Well, obviously I work 5 days a week, but it was always 8 to 5. I never wanted to, I didn't like the hospital. Like I get nauseous when I go to the hospital. I didn't want to do newborn nursery because like the payment that they give you is nothing compared to the driving and parking and finding the mom and finding the kid. And like, it's just, it's not a good use of your time. So outpatient pediatrics is usually like 8 to 5. Some of them will have nursery rounds during your lunch, and then some of them, but not a lot anymore. A few will have hospitals that like inpatient that you have to see, but that's pretty rare. Those have usually been taken over by the hospitals.
And in terms of starting up your clinic, how did you go about the process of setting up a business like that?
Okay, like I went in totally blindly, okay? So y'all, these days, y'all have so much more resources and so much more support. What happened is I worked for someone in private pediatrics. Actually, my sister and I job shared for someone in private pediatrics, and we thought we were going to stay with her, but we just had differences in the management. And my dad owns a Dairy Queen in the area that we have now, and he's been in there like for 20 years. And he kept saying, "There's so many kids here. Like, come open up a clinic." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I don't know anything about business, right?" And my cousin owned the shopping center. He's a dentist. So he's like, "Hey, I'm going to give you the space. Come open the door, like build it out. And then I'll give you 6 months rent free. And then if it doesn't work, okay, whatever, you just close it. And if it works, then great." And we were like, okay. And we opened the doors, and it was a tsunami. Like the area needed it. So if you're going to open a clinic anywhere, location. There are so many models of primary care out there now. There's so much movement in the telehealth world. There's so much movement in the direct primary care, which you don't take any insurance. It's a membership model, which I totally would do that if I had to do it over, right? But then you can work with some underserved do like a membership thing. But my point is, like, I just went with the flow, and I believed in myself and I trusted myself. And I was like, I'm going into this community, and there weren't that many physicians out there, pediatricians, and I'm actually giving a huge value to this community. So it's just all going to work out. Like, that's what I did.
Well, at least it ended up being successful, as we can see later on. So another student also asks, what do you do personally to relax from the stresses of work? I know that you described kind of the mindset of how to take on things during your speech earlier, but are there any personal tips and tricks that you use that maybe people here could get help with?
So I actually did this talk yesterday for the physicians out there. So there's 5 things I mentioned to them, which is kind of it as I mentioned to y'all. I think journaling is huge, y'all. Like, I call it potty training your toddler brain. You've got to get all that poop out of your brain. Okay. And you've got to get it on paper, and you might not know how much lighter you feel, but if you do it over and over and over, and it takes like 10 minutes, it takes 10 minutes to write down all your thoughts and just get it out on paper, so it's not brewing up in your head. So that I do religiously. I've done for 18 months, and it makes a huge difference. And then, so part of it, the breathing is huge. So do y'all know about the Calm app and the Headspace app? I don't know if y'all know that. There's a free version, Calm, CALM, and then Headspace is just like Headspace. There's a free version, and when COVID hit, they gave it was completely free for the healthcare workers, because it's meditation and it's breathing exercises. And I cannot tell you how important this is, and how much we take our breathing and our stillness for granted. Because again, what does it do? It takes you from that cortisol driven state into that like calm, grounded, really ease space that you want to be. Exercising is good if you're into exercising, right? But don't let the exercising be a stress on top of it, because then that defeats the purpose. If you want to do any kind of sports, that's a kind of exercise, but or just like resting, like rest your brain. It's important, rest your brain. I have a podcast which I talk a lot more detail about all this stuff if you're interested in more of the mindfulness. It's Mindful Living with Dr. Sogol. If you just go Sogol in podcast, you can just find it and download it. And I go into lots of details, and that's mostly what I talk about because of my burnout and my kind of journey towards like mindfulness. But I will say, journal. I will say, learn how to breathe, do the belly breathing. And then if you can, take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes just to meditate and do a guided meditation, because the other ones are probably going to be too hard for y'all, to where someone's like, oh, relax your body, relax your mind, to start with something like that. And you can find all of that on YouTube. And it doesn't matter which one you do, whatever resonates with you. Some of them, the sound is weird and the guy sounds weird. So pick something that resonates with you. And then, or just listening to like calm music, listening to like, the birds singing or whatever calm music that you like listening to. But a lot of it is mindset work.
And earlier you discussed a bit about the use or the overlooked use really of how failures can be an opportunity to learn, right? So looking back at now that you've gone through the entire medical journey and now that you're a practicing physician, looking back, are there any regrets that you have and any ways that you think you might have been able to route the journey a little better?
Yeah, so my biggest regret is that I wasn't kind to myself, right? My biggest regret is that I ended up in the burnout that I ended up with. And I think it would have totally been preventable if I would have just paused and been like, you don't have to do 1,000 things at once and get there really quick, because when you do get there, like it's like anticlimactic, right? It's like when you get there, you always want to get to something higher and deeper. And so like it is to experience and enjoy the journey. It's not about the results. And that was the biggest revelation that I had, is like, okay, I've gotten to all these places, but like, I just rushed through it, and I got there in anxiety and overwhelm and urgency and rush. And that's how I experienced like the last, 30 years of my life. And that could have been different. So that's why I'm like, please put yourself on the top of your to-do list. It's so important to do that.
We have another student asking for any of the people here from Houston, and if they would like to have some shadowing, would you be open to having students shadow at your clinic?
Is this in person?
Yeah, it's for a student wondering if they can do in-person shadowing at your
I
clinic.
will say, you have my email, or you can share my email with them. Because of COVID, we actually had Texas Children's residents that we stopped because of COVID. We have not allowed any students, but talk to me in the summer, like email me in the summer. And then, because it's always moving, like COVID, there's it fluctuates. So it just depends on where we are, if there's a surge or not. I will say during the winter breaks and the spring breaks, pediatrics is super busy with like flu and RSV and now these COVID surges. The summertime gets much quieter, but and I think we had like this last summer, we had like a high school student follow us for like 3 or 4 sessions or something like that. So we might be open to it during the summer. So just like email me when it gets closer to the summer.
Sounds good. And then to tag along with the previous question about how you learned from previous experiences during your journey, are there any things that you wish you knew before pursuing your profession?
Are there any things? Yes, God, especially in entrepreneurship. Yeah, that's like a whole hour talk. But okay, but I will tell you just like the big points. Delegate. You don't have to do it all yourself. just because you can do it all yourself doesn't mean you should do it all yourself. Okay. So especially in entrepreneurship and leading a team, right? Team doesn't have the word I in it, right? It doesn't have the letter I in it for a reason, because in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be able to delegate tasks out and understand what people's stretches and what their strengths are, and then leverage them. And I did not do that. It was like, do it my way or the highway. That was one of the other reasons I was in burnout. So delegation is huge. And then y'all, people skills is so much more important than your grades. Like, no, patients don't care where you went to med school or what residency you did. I don't have a single patient that has ever asked me like, oh, so where did you finish your resident? I don't care. They just care how you treat them, how you see them, and how you connect with them. Those three things. So those are the skills that I would focus on, which are like human skills. Like, be a human, right? We tend to be like these competitive, like hyper type A, like robots in a sense, like go, study, get, do. That doesn't work in real life, right? It'll get you to places, but it won't get you, you'll hit a wall, right? So just like be human, be kind. Empathy is so important. And the other thing I will tell, especially for med students and residents, okay, when somebody gives you feedback, it's not a criticism. Keep repeating that to yourself. So important. It's constructive feedback. Okay, we're all human. That's how we grow, right? We do stuff and we have our stretches and strengths. And if somebody points out your stretch, don't let your brain be like, oh, and be super defensive about it. Take it and be like, what can I learn from this? Why? I don't know. Why did I do that? How did this happen? Well, they just keep asking, what can I learn? What can I learn? Oh, be really open, because you're going to get a lot of feedback. And I will say, because I have a lot of friends that are program directors in residencies, and the number one thing they say is like, these kids cannot take any constructive feedback. We have to like walk on eggshells and make it all pretty with a bow on top. And then half the time they're mad at us and they don't think there's anything wrong. So learn how to take that feedback. Super important for your own growth.
Absolutely. And just to wrap up our session, we have one last question. Go ahead, Natalie, you can ask your question.
Hi, Dr. Sogol. Thank you so much for your time today. I think I can speak for everybody that it's not very common to have like an uplifting session on like what we should be doing mindfulness wise. Regarding to your practice in pediatrics, have you had to deal with any COVID hesitancy or parents saying no to getting their children vaccinated, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, like every day, every other patient. So I will say that the drama, the hard part in the clinic was the vaccine hesitancy with the staff, right? So we actually were in a good space, because from the beginning, when we established our clinic, we had strict office policies that we adhered. Our vaccine policy on our webpage is that we adhere to the AAP CDC vaccines. So we weeded out a lot of those patients that were anti-vax from the beginning, or that wanted alternate vaccine schedules. We were like, if you want to come here, you vaccinate the way we tell you to vaccinate, and I'm not really arguing with you. And so you can choose to come here, or if not, then you go somewhere else. So that's, boundaries are very important in that sense. And because we had that, I think we attracted staff that was aligned with our values. And that was one of our values, is to give like practice medicine on evidence-based medicine, which was like, okay, vaccines are evidence-based. So we had a few staff members at the beginning where we're like, oh, we want to wait, we want to, like in January when the vaccines came out, or I think we got them in December. But what we did, we actually had a campaign within our clinic. So we communicate via Slack. So it started with the physicians. When the physicians went and got their shots, they took pictures of themselves, and we shared those pictures with everyone on Slack. And then each physician said like why they got the vaccine. So I think it gave the staff that was a little bit more hesitant some safety, right? Because it's like it's all based on fear, right? So it's like, oh, if the physicians are getting it, then it should be okay, right? And they had a great relationship with us, so the trust was already there. And I will tell, and with the staff, we don't have much turnover in our staff, so the trust was there. So when we put ourselves forward and when we modeled that behavior, then they followed it. And then so we didn't have to fire anyone, but there's been hospitals and clinics that have to fire people, and now we have a COVID vaccine policy that everybody signed. The patients, it's hit and miss. So again, in our area, the underserved Hispanic areas, they're very good about vaccinating. We're not in this like this area where there's like a lot of anti-vaxxers and non-science people. So but then there's still hesitancy over COVID. And that's, I think, one of the things that has really led to burnout in physicians is like, guys, you're not vaccinating, and then we have to work harder. Like, just vaccinate so we don't have to work harder, right? And it's like, this is where mindfulness comes in, right? This is where you have to really like draw boundaries and be like, just gonna educate you on what I can, and that's all I can do. Like, the choice is up to you ultimately, right? And I'm not going to carry that burden and that worry and that anxiety with me, because that's not going to make that person get vaccinated if I'm angry for them not getting vaccinated, if I'm worried for them not getting vaccinated, right? And then you're expending your energy, you're giving the energy away because you're expending it on like getting angry about them not vaccinating. It's like, okay, well, I'd rather expend my energy on the people that are really going to listen to me, and the ones that don't, it's ultimately their choice, right? Ultimately, it's their choice. It's been crazy. I've had in the last month, because we just had a surge in Houston, I've had one parent die every week for the it stopped 2 weeks ago. So what are we in, October? So September. One parent died every week because of COVID, and they still don't want to vaccinate their kids. That's how insane these people are. So it's like, okay, well, if the death of your mother didn't teach you, then nothing I say is going to make a difference in your decision.
Yeah, and I think that wraps up our session for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Sogol, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Just like it was mentioned earlier, I think I speak for everyone here that we really enjoyed your session. It was a unique opportunity to kind of go outside the boundaries of what we typically hear from speakers, and it was definitely one that's much needed. For our audience, to receive a certificate for this session, you must pass the quiz on our website, which is now uploaded. And be sure to join us for our next virtual shouting session with Dr. Mangona on October 13th at 7 p.m. Central. And once again, thank you, Dr. Sogol, for joining us today. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Dr. Sogol.
Thank you.
Thank you.